Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about AI and how is it shifting strategic global capital markets. But with that disclaimer before that, I've always been advised not to talk before lunch or after lunch. So I'm not sure if you guys have the energy. I'm not sure about the dessert you talked about. So let's see it. What we're looking at today is how do we shift, how the capital market, when we decipher the title over here, why capital markets are using AI to make investments, and why investments are going, and capital market going behind AI as well. We also want to understand what, as entrepreneurs, when you come to invest, what do you need to look at, what do you need to keep in mind. And I'd like to bring an example of what UAE has achieved in terms of looking at the strategy of AI and getting it implemented as well, and then the way forward that we go through. So I call this thing the shifting sand of AI, to be honest with you. If you look at it, just to reaffirm, this is not a technology upgrade. We're actually looking at the paradigm shift. AI is really changing everything in the world and will continue to change. This is not going to be a small shift. This is going to be huge things, a new economic engine getting developed. If you look at it, traditionally, when we used to invest, we relied about our intuitive data, a fragmented data sets, and of course, information coming in bits and pieces. Today, AI is able to scan global markets and look at an analysis, geopolitical situation, disruption in supply chain happening by minute, and give you the analysis in a speed of light, which would take us about weeks, a month to do. And that's why you see sovereign wealth funds. You're able to see the private investors, the PE guys, and entrepreneurs are investing huge amount of money into AI because they know the future is there. And we'll talk about some of those numbers and whether it makes sense or not. Is it in hype or not hype? That's why you see globally now, you have hubs have been created because of AI itself. You've got US, China, UAE, and EU strongly investing into AI. And we'll also see some of the numbers as well, how much being pledged over there. I'd like to bring this slide for those people who are technical, how AI works. I don't call it artificial intelligence. I still call it artificial inferences, because we're inferencing. We're not really gone to the intelligence level because we're working on existing data and models. Look at the three spheres on your left side. They start with big data. If we don't have data, all this will collapse. Nothing will work. Nothing will move forward. And we'll talk about the data a little bit also further in a couple of slides. After you have the data, we actually graduated ourselves to the next sphere, which is understanding analytics. Basically, how do we make sense about the data we have today? So the computers can do that for you by programming it. And then you upgrade yourself by having mathematics, engineering about it, so you can create a data science where you can forecast future. And this is where data science is coming to play quite a lot. Then you come to the most three interesting spheres in the middle, starting with deep learning, which is about computer and models trying to simulate human behavior. And I say trying because it's still far away from it, because human brain works completely different. And when you upgrade yourself to the machine learning, which has been there for a very long time, which I'll also mention it in a while, it actually tried to imitate human cognition. And then when we graduate and go to the artificial intelligence, hopefully in years to come, then probably we're trying to how to understand human reaction is. Because if I throw a ball at you, you're intuitively going to catch the ball. We yet to achieve that with robots. Although there are so many robotic companies, like in China, are making quite strides. If you look at the company called Figure in the US as well, it's making huge strides over there. And they're going to come up with billions of robots by 2030. These are the bets of what people are saying it. So this is a very quick lessons on how AI works. How AI is defining the capital market. Remember we said that we used to do things manually, and now it's getting done automatically or completely. You're able to do credit worthiness of people or companies, due diligence, part of that thing, done by AI itself. And that's why you see it's getting very permeated in every single businesses. If you speak to Larry Fink, who's the CEO of BlackRock, someone we met last year, I guess, in the beginning of this year, they're trying to show off their algo, which is an algorithm they've been using in terms of using AI in terms of making investment decisions. And you know what's the key differentiator? Something we touched upon last slide, data. Particularly proprietary data. And if you don't have data, proprietary data, you will not be able to build the model you want to do. Because today the models are open source. You can get any of the models over there. And now we use what we say is, it's like, if you have a Ferrari without the fuel, It looks nice, but it's not going to go anywhere. That's why you need to have proprietary data for you to build something which is meaningful. I'm not talking about ChatGPT and what the other people are trying to work. I'm talking about really building up use cases where businesses can completely change and thrive and evolve. And that takes me to predictive modeling, which we talked about as well. How do we predict future? This is not something new. Google someone called Simon James, who was there, founded the company in 1982 called Renaissance Technologies. So what they used to do, they used to actually model quantitative trading. So it's a hedge fund, still established, still there. They're employed a lot of mathematicians. They have 90 PhD graduates over there who are only talking about how can we create automatic trading platform. Back in 1982, the company's still there. The founder died last year, but the legacy continues. So these things has been there for quite time. We used to build models. I'm talking about when I say we, myself, my team in my previous career, understanding what clients would do next, i.e. trying to offer them a bespoke services. Today, all your banks probably will give you the same thing, even if you're not going to use the service. Knowingly, they will still give you the same services or give you an SMS or whatever messaging system you use over here will actually bombard you with those kind of things. But they're still not bespoke, unfortunately. But we used to do that thing in our banking system years ago, decades ago, in very bespoke. Why? Because we used to build those predictive models. This is a very interesting thing. How do we use AI to become an engine for our investments? Let me take you back roughly 150 years ago, when we moved from steam engines, the picture you see on the top left, and to electric engines. So what we did, we said this is a good technology. We have a continuous of power to be there. Steam engines are very large. Why don't we put up electric engines so we can cut the powers? But you know, we've achieved nothing. We've improved nothing at all. Why? Because we still relied on the same pulley systems, same assembly lines, same multi-story buildings, having all this operation done. And they did not move anywhere. So a moment came in when the people and engineers started thinking, saying, why do we have electric engines so massive, controlling everything? Everything is getting centralized. Why don't we make it decentralized? Why can't we have everything into one assembly line and change the way we do manufacturing? So they completely changed, and then they felt the value. If you now bring parallel to what we're doing today, if you go to offices today, at best, I'm talking generally speaking, of course there are exceptional examples, people are using ChatGPT to write their emails. Nothing wrong with that. We've improved a bit. People are using cloud to summarize their meetings. That's mostly what people are trying to do. So we're not really looking at the full potential what AI will bring to us and can bring to us even today, not even future today. And this is what the shift need to happen. If we don't embrace that shift today and we actually build the use cases that we have, first of all, you need to have a use case. If you don't build those use cases, then we're going nowhere. We're going to get stuck where we are. And that's where you see why a lot of people are putting in money. US private companies have invested about $470 billion in about 10 years, from 2013 to 2024. We all know their last year investment in AI privately has been of over $200 billion. This year, we're probably going to cross $350 billion. UAE as a government, they've pledged about $1.4 trillion for investment on AI. So these are government and these are private numbers that you see over here. So these are very staggering numbers. Why they're doing it? Because they see the value in it. Are we living in a hype? We'll see. What are the things that we as entrepreneurs, if we want to invest in companies who are actually developing AI models, or we want to start things ourselves? We need to keep few things in our mind. One, it's not about just building an AI model. You need to have compute powers. That's the new currency. Compute power is the real new currency. That means you need to have GPUs. You need to have cloud computing to be there as well. So these are expensive technologies. And you need to see whether this technology is going to yield results, going to make money or not. You need to make sure as well you understand the landscape of regulation across the globe. Every continent has a different way of getting things done. EU is regulating, of course, US trying to innovate, and other parts of the world, they're trying to scale up on whatever is available today. So you need to understand different regulation before you go and invest if you want to have a global AI company over there. We talked about a while ago about proprietary data. Now, what do we mean by proprietary data? So if you want to go and develop something for an organization, whatever it is organization, if you can access their data, you'll be very close in getting something valuable for them, because it's all about having the richness and depth of the data, and the data need to be interpretable. And you need to make sure that you segment the data correctly. It's all about garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have the right segmented data, you'll not be able to build the models. So you need to keep that in your mind when you're building it. So these are some of the things the entrepreneurs need to keep in their mind when they're actually investing behind these companies or want to start up their own companies. Of course, you all probably have seen this circle of people investing on each other. And that's what has created the hallucination of saying, are we living in a bubble? That's why it is actually in a bubble, to be honest with you. So we don't know when this bubble will burst. Does it mean there's no value in whatever we're building? Of course, there's a huge value. But what's happened, because we have invested on each other, we created higher inflation in terms of the valuation of these companies. It's like me starting, I want to support you to start a coffee company. So I lend you $100. And I sell the coffee bean. So you give me the $100 back to buy the bean from me. There's no really transaction happen economically, by the way. This is what exactly happening today. So one day, probably somebody will pierce this bubble. When, I don't know. But there will still be value being there. This is called circular spending. Everybody's spending on each other. So I'll come and invest in you. You come and buy my GPUs. This is it. So it's more of an accounting terms. But there's a huge value to be there. So just keep in mind, because you'll be seeing this quite a lot. And it has been going a lot for the last, I would say, 15 days. And everybody's talking about this bubble being burst. Let me share with you an example of what we have done in the country. When we started our AI journey, that was back in 2017, when we appointed our AI minister. First AI minister globally. Of course, he was not appointed saying it, now we are the AI minister. We've been thinking about it for a very long time. Saying it, okay, we know the technology which are relevant, going to be there, going to be meaningful, what do we need to do? So we immediately appointed the minister over there. But I always say that we know we're blessed with the leaders who had the foresight to think about it and make that happen. So while AI becomes something very important for us, but our seed of digitization of the country did not happen in 2017. The seed goes actually back to 1995, when Dubai said we would like to go to e-government. So His Highness Sheikh Mohammed Rashid, who's the Vice President of UAE and Prime Minister of UAE, he called up all his N-1, N-2, N-3 to a hotel. It was broadcasted live on the TV. People looked at what he's saying. And he said, look, guys, he's very direct in his talk. He does not sugarcoat. He's very, very quick in what he wants to do. So he said, look, we would like to transform our government to become e-government, so we make transaction for people to transact with us easily. So we create that. And whoever is going to be on this journey is going to be roughly rights going to be there. We welcome you on board. But if you cannot, we respect you. And he said, just resign. Openly and open air life. Just resign. That's it. No sugarcoating. Of course, whoever could not do it were resigned. And few people rejected it, so they were forced to resign or get terminated. So that's what happened. And an evolution happened after that, after the 5 years, when we have evolved to e-government, immediately said, okay, the next thing is we want to make sure that we have the smart city. And the immediate thing is we're going to have the 10 accelerators. And meaning, if the world is growing at 1x, we want to grow at 10x. We want to grow 10 times faster than UAE, than anybody else globally. And whatever I mentioned, go to a website called u.ae. You'll see the whole plan laid out for 2031, 2033, 2040, 2071. What are we going to do? And if you go backward to see whatever we have promised, you'll see all of them being achieved. And they're a very strict target. The reason being there, because we run the country as a corporation, and we make sure they're all driven on KPI. Blockchain, we were the first country in the world to adopt blockchain in government services. Just to make it very simple what blockchains mean, which is something none of us need to know about it. We don't need to use it. We're only an end user of it. So you have one single truth of every data you have on your own citizen. What happens? If you go to any government services, earlier in the past, they will all maintain separate databases. Now it will be only one central database, so it makes it very easier. So everything is digitized. This is a quick video on Dubai small city model that we're building on. They disabled the volume. skip this and go quickly. I can see I have only 1 minute. The UAE vision is all about making sure that we have the right regulatory framework, which will support the entrepreneurs, ecosystem, private sectors, and so forth. And that comes from government leading it and making it happen. So it was government says, whatever we're going to do, first, the adoption will be by the government. So we started with changing the culture. The culture had to be changed. So all the ministers, they're N-1, N-2, N-3, all the 500 people were trained on new technologies. So the adoption can happen faster than the government services. In UAE, the government services really lead, and the private sector follows, making sure that the adoption is always for the government. And of course, we invest higher than the global average from our capital with 2%. The global average is 1.6%. We work on a smart cities concept and digital. How do we make that happen as well? We're integrating, making sure all the government services are integrated. For example, the entire Dubai is on digital twin, which is very simply put, it's a virtual replica of your physical world into the virtual world. So whenever we want to build cities, we build it first virtually, then we build it physically so we avoid all the mistakes of carbon emissions and so forth and roading. And of course, this cannot happen if we do not support the ecosystem for the startups, because they come with brilliant ideas. So we work with them very quickly. Of course, the result is we are the third government when it comes to digital government, globally standards. And of course, we're second country behind investment. Probably we're number one now after the $1.4 trillion. And our vision is how do we make AI programs which are for the human good by collaborating and working with people constantly and continuously. Of course, we had the first AI postgraduate universities globally, which is named by the president. We would like to, and of course, why this is happening? Because of leadership, as I mentioned earlier. And it's not about vision alone. It's about when rubber meets the road. That's what we say in the corporate world. It's about execution power. So these leaders, they go everywhere to see what's happening apart from the mystery shoppers. So they lead the cultural change. They make sure everybody works day and night to make it happen. And constantly. They don't do it once, they do it recurringly, and that's why it's a corporate organization. What's the next that we need to do going forward? We need to make sure, how do we leverage AI to determine how do we invest and what do we put our capital for on whatever I spoke about? Because that's going to be the economic boom that we need to do. And of course, the way forward, a very simple formula I've learned myself, is how do we have human intelligence integrated with the AI, which is the artificial inferences or intelligence, if you want to call it, to get something very unique, PI. Anybody want to guess what PI stand for? There's no negative marking. It's not a GMAT test. Any guesses? I can help you with the I. The PI stand for, I is for intelligence, perfect intelligence. So you combine us together, meaning that human going to be always in the loop of getting things done. You will never be able to take human out. The moment humans are not there, that means the world does not exist. For us to thrive, we have to collaborate together globally. And that's what UAE, one of the pillars that we have in UAE, whatever we do right and whatever we succeed in, we need to make sure we take it to the global world and also share our successes with them so they understand it. Last blue slide, this is where we come from. We don't forget our legacy. We humble ourselves, ground ourselves, understanding this is how we are. This is the president, the founder of the country. When he started in the sand, looking all the desert over there, he was not looking at the sand. He was looking how I would build the country in 50 years to come. And this is what he did. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We only have very short amount of time for one quick question, because we're already over time, but the one question we have to talk about, you mentioned it, you're a banker, but also an expert on AI. So what about the bubble?
It will definitely burst sometimes. Somebody will actually make it burst. But in that case, does it mean the value will not be there? The value will remain, but the valuation will need to get adjusted of the companies.
So basically, the stocks are going down, but the stuff that's been built is still being built.
100%.
And then that's what we focus on.
100%.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This was very interesting.
Thank you.
And a big round of applause,
Thank
please.
You very much.
Thank you.